Sometimes one may feel that money is a reflection of your hard work. Sometimes you may feel that money is a responsibility. If you need it, then you may feel that money is something which is a blessing. If you chase it, then it may mean very differently to you.
Very excited to be talking to you. Before we begin, I have to mention that you are one of the youngest executive on the Panasonic board, and you are the first Indian at a very, very senior role in Panasonic. And I know that these things don't come easily, and I'm bringing this out because this is a difficult time for the world. And let's start with the context of your role, and what are some of the things that you think in your career you've done right, which has got you to be where you are?
Sure. So last thing first, I believe. I don't have a single pointed answer to sort of reflect upon what was that one right thing which one would have done. But I feel that it started off as early as when I was starting my career. And there was a very specific thought process which was cutting through my mind at that point of time. And to sort of give you one instance, I would sort of share with you that how I underwent my first interview. So many people don't know that after passing out from my engineering college, I was sort of looking out for a job. I was born and brought up and raised in a place called Gwalior in MP. And after that, I came to Delhi to sort of see the consultants, and the digital convergence was just starting off, and internet was starting to get penetrated. So today you have all the digital mediums to sort of reach out. But during those days, one has to sort of go through the by lanes of a Nehru place to meet the consultants and, distribute your buy data across. So I went through that process for a couple of days and got an opportunity with a company which was into manufacturing of fiber optical cables, because the telecom revolution was taking place that point of time. So this was a homegrown company based out of Dharuheda. The manufacturing facility was further south to Gurgaon. And I joined this company just for a day and felt that this possibly is not the place where I would be able to sort of reflect upon my capabilities and the passion. And went back to my hometown, and it was a quest in itself to every day sort of take a lift. And there was a industrial area called Malanpur, which was coming up very close to Gwalior. And a lot of multinational companies were sort of establishing their greenfield investments. LG was one of them. And this was a joint venture with Hotline Group, which was one of the leading groups at that point of time. And I used to sort of every day approach their human resource department just by knocking their door. And there was a project which was coming up. And I had nothing much because smartphones did not exist during those days. So I used to read newspaper every morning sitting at one of the chai ka thela outside that project office. And the incident of Purulia's arms drop had just happened. I had so much of time to my discretion that for hours together, I was doing almost a thesis of a sort on that subject. And after a few days, every time they were telling me that this entire process happens in Delhi at our head office. So why don't you approach the head office in Delhi and sort of explore an opportunity for yourself? Anyway, they saw that this boy is sitting for many days. So they allowed me to come in, and one of the managers were asked to take my interview. And the first question which he asks is, Manish, what is your assessment about Purulia's arms drop? So that was the moment of truth for me. So I think there lies the answer. So if you really think about something very seriously and consistently, very passionately, and of course convert that into actions, then I believe success is a logical outcome of that.
Yeah.
So possibly I thought that sharing this anecdote, I'll reflect upon the answer which you were seeking. So that is about what I believe, consistently. So I always feel that three C's are extremely important for every individual or possibly for organizations also. So first is the character itself. So for individuals, it may mean the character of how they exhibit themselves under a variety of circumstances. And for organizations, I believe collective character may mean culture of the organization. Second is capabilities. I think capabilities have to consistently evolve. And therefore, third C is consistency. So I thoroughly believe, and when I reflect back in my own life, I feel that continuously one would have made efforts to improvise upon character and capability both.
Yeah.
So I believe that is what the mantra is, which I try to follow most of the times to really evolve and sort of catch with the pace of the dynamically changing environment.
Yeah.
The second question which you asked was that, what exactly would my responsibilities being in the position I am in this organization? So yeah, you rightly asked this question. It's a large responsibility. So I think the first and foremost is that how do you place India in the global supply chain, ecosystem of Panasonic Corporation? So this would be sitting on the top of my agenda. And second is how do you add to the nation's developmental agenda, and how do you really fit in your organization and yourselves individually in that agenda? So I think with the position of being the executive officer of the corporation, the biggest of difference is that one is exposed to more information than one was exposed in the past. So today you get to know what the long-term strategy of the organization is and how the organization is looking at building more capabilities. And I am very happy to sort of share with you that in last few years, one major shift in the thought process of the corporation which has happened is that Panasonic Corporation no longer considers India as an opportunity or as a market. It also considers India as a capability, which essentially means today we are looking at utilizing India as a capability to provide IT services for other subsidiaries of Panasonic Corporation. We recently set up a India Innovation Center based out of Bangalore. So it is developing sort of platform solutions from scratch, not only for this country, but also to be ready for servicing the world, the other subsidiaries of Panasonic Corporation. I may share some examples in the time. And third is to look at sort of exporting human resource, which is the talent itself from India to the other subsidiaries of Panasonic Corporation. So I think those are the situations which I'm looking at being in this position.
I read in Harvard, in one of the Harvard publishing, they talked about why Japan has always resurrected itself very, very strongly whenever it faces any crisis. And it talked about the 2011 tsunami and the earthquake that happened, which was very, very severe. But businesses recovered, and why the country recovered, there was one very strong point that the leaders and the businesses, they didn't think about themselves or profiteering, but they thought about how to go and help, and very generously, be it the supermarket companies or people distributed and went out of the way to take care of each other, and they brought that long term thinking plus that compassion and empathy. Because Panasonic is a Japanese company, what are some of the learnings that you look at while you are running the operations in India, and especially while we face the pandemic now?
So I've been to Japan more than 100 times in last 8 or 9 years. And every time I visit Japan, there's a new learning which one acquires. And
Mm.
I think determination, discipline, compassion, possibly long-term thinking of every individual and their fundamental responsibility to sort of look at contributing to the society first, and then looking at their own sort of self motives. I mean, for any Japanese, or most likely whenever I sort of interact with my colleagues over there, I realize that for them, country comes first, and then their own company, and then possibly their individual ambitions. So that would cut across a lot of Japanese as a society and individuals. And I personally have seen that the kind of discipline which they sort of exhibit in doing things creates a huge differentiation. And in that sense, they eliminate all the efficiency losses which otherwise would happen.
Mm.
And therefore, Japan always has bounced back, irrespective the magnitude of challenge which they face. And this may go back starting from World War, how they bounced back as a country and then they rebuilt the entire country, created a clear differentiation for themselves. And I think the quality revolution, when it happened globally, Japan was leading it from the front. And our own organization, we are about 102 years old now. We were established in 1918, so we celebrated the 100th year in 2018. So every time I visit Japan, there is a museum in Osaka, which is a reflection of the journey of our founder. So his name is Konosuke Matsushita. I happen to be deeply inspired by his life, by his philosophies. I read a lot of his work. He also established an institute called PHP, which essentially means peace and harmony through prosperity. So the fundamental thought process in his mind was, if the nation and its people prosper, then there'll be peace and harmony. And he sort of invested a lot of time and effort and people into researching on this subject and created a lot of sort of philosophies, and a lot of books were written out of PHP. So the thought process which cuts across majorly across people in Japan, especially people who are in the age of 45 plus, who have sort of gone through that entire process of seeing how their fathers and forefathers were involved into nation building, and then building organizations like Panasonic and many other Japanese companies. So I believe there is a serious sense of responsibility which cuts across a lot of these people, which creates this amount of differentiation in the way this country and its people does things. Talking about our organization, it has seen the test of times, and it started off manufacturing a small product which was a socket for a bulb, because electrification was sort of penetrating through Japan around that time. And one of the major challenges for the society was that the sockets which were available that point of time, there was just one socket for one household. And if you have to sort of switch on a bulb, then you have to sort of plug that bulb into that socket. And if you have to, let's say, do any other activity utilizing the electricity which is coming into your house, you have to remove the bulb and plug the other device which you are wanting to use. So Konosuke was sort of wanting to find a solution for this problem. So he sort of invented a dual socket so that people can sort of utilize it for multiple purposes. This is how Panasonic started, possibly within his own home, and then it started to expand. It faced multiple challenges while the journey progressed. In the first instance, it was the depression which happened in Japan, and then World War happened. Then they were wanting to sort of go global. There were multiple challenges, so on and so forth. And then there were times of success. You go back into 1980s and the early 90s, before the digital convergence started to happen. The time of VCR and VHS. I mean, they become a real global company and making large profits and investing those profits back both in the organization and also contributing for the society. And now the digital convergence era, when it is undergoing, Panasonic is looking at really diversifying its business interests. So just to quickly give you a sense, we are 39 business divisions globally. And in India, many people may not know that how diversified Panasonic Corporation is. But most of the people feel that this is the organization doing televisions, air conditioners, and let's say the other home appliances and durables. But this is only about 45% of the revenues which we do in India. And if I give you a sense of how the global revenue split would be, 78% of global revenues come out of B2B oriented businesses. It is only 22% of revenues which does consumer appliances or consumer oriented businesses. In India, still 45% of our revenues come out of consumer appliances. Anchor Electricals also happens to be our subsidiary, which is into switches and wires and wiring devices, again dominates its own space. And roughly about 25 to 26% of our businesses come out of B2B oriented businesses. So I think one of the tasks at hand is that how do we really bring those solutions which can help solve the problems of the society. So simply speaking, we have divided our strategy into 5 different verticals. The first one is the identity of the organization, which is the consumer appliances businesses. So we have some really good innovations into air conditioners. I'm happy to share that today, out of the total range of air conditioners which we sort of propose to the market, all of them are connected. So the intention is to democratize technology and make it available for people at large. So the first pillar is consumer appliances. The second pillar is, we call them life solutions. People know that as Anchor Electricals in the country. So it is about wires, wiring devices, switches, fans, geysers, and those kind of products. Third one is very interesting. So this is my agenda, that how do you leverage on your 2 capabilities, build software platforms to provide solutions for the living spaces. So this is a major interest area for Panasonic to develop capabilities in the time to come. and provide total living spaces solutions. So how do you make life of people within their homes more convenient, comfortable, energy efficient, and safe? So this is the third focus area which we have created for ourselves. Fourth one is also very interesting, again, very much aligned with the challenges which our country is facing and some of the problems which we have to really solve, which is supply chain. So Panasonic today has capabilities across all three important verticals of supply chain. So first one is manufacturing. With 100-year experience into manufacturing, we have accumulated massive learnings and also created some IoT-based solutions for smart manufacturing to happen. So first is manufacturing. Second is logistics. So how do you eliminate the waste which happens during the time the material and the goods are into transit? And third is smart retail solutions. So this is the fourth focus area for Panasonic. And the fifth one is energy solutions. We all know that how storage technology is going to change the way things happen. So currently we are into supplying batteries for the mission critical applications, data centers, telecom operations, ATMs, and so on and so forth. So how do you look at providing, data storage and energy storage solutions? So that is our fifth focus area for ourselves. So I think that is the kind of agenda which I am taking forward at this point of time to make sure that we position Panasonic at a position which it truly deserves.
Today only or yesterday, some of the experts in the stock market, they said that, oh, give a pass to chemicals, consumer durable stocks you should pick up. I want to understand, and because, there was so much of flux in the first few months after the lockdown. How are you seeing, because people are saying that there is recovery, festival is around the corner. How are you seeing the market? And then more so from the Bharat standpoint, consumption?
If we look at the penetration of various consumer appliances in the country, let's take instance of air conditioners, and I'll share some of the work which we are doing in line with that direction. So today the penetration of air conditioners in our country is less than 5%. So less than 5% of households own an air conditioner. Even if one owns one air conditioner, that adds into the penetration. Now this is massive potential. The manufacturing or the consumption which happens in the country, so we consume roughly about 7.5 million air conditioners every year. We manufacture 5 million out of those 7.5 million. So in the first instance, there is an opportunity to scale up local manufacturing. If I compare this with China, China manufactures in excess of 110 million air conditioners every year. Now look at the scale. We manufacture 5 million, they manufacture 110 million. Out of that 110 million, they consume 50 million within their country, and 80 million, roughly about 80 million, is exported out. Now the situation is such that our country is in a position to not only unlock the potential, the demand potential of the country, but also to look at backward integrating, because once you start to scale up, you have a situation to do your component manufacturing also in the country, and also to start to export. So I believe that consumer appliances or consumer durables or household appliances, kitchen appliances, beauty care products, lifestyle products which go into houses have a massive potential to scale up in our country. And this sort of growth will not only be driven into large urban markets, but I think the big potential is into smaller towns. So therefore, we are also aligning our strategy in line with this. And you use the term Bharat. So recently we have sort of initiated a new function called Bharat Marketing within our organization. And we want to clearly sort of have a focused approach into two different market opportunities. The first one, we call it organized retail, which is into large markets, the urban markets. And the second one is general trade, which is about the Bharat as we know. And I personally feel that the initiatives needed or the approach needed, the strategies required should be very clearly defined for both these approaches. So while it is about dealing some key accounts, the large retailers into large consumer markets, and when it comes to the smaller towns, it is more about dealing with distributors and ensuring right supply chain is in place, and elimination of opportunity loss happens by way of efficiency into your demand forecasting and supply chain and those kind of efforts. And I believe a lot of BTL activities would be needed to reach out to those consumers to create more awareness about products and so on and so forth. So those are the kind of initiatives which we have taken in our organization to ensure that we capitalize on this very long term, or I would say that very large opportunity which exists in our country. So you're right. I think this industry possibly there might be some short term challenges. We are trying to sort of get the demand potential unlocked, not only by the initiatives being taken by industry or organizations individually, but I think government is also joining this very important purpose, and they are aligning their sort of policy interventions to ensure that all these three objectives which I mentioned, the unlocking of the potential, backward integration to sort of let components get manufactured in the country, and also enable exports. So conversations are happening in a manner which is far more than what it was happening in the past. So in some sense, stakeholders are considering that this pandemic, while is an adversity of a sort, but they are trying to convert this into an opportunity. So that is the kind of sense which is cutting across.
Electronics and IT Minister has been very bullish. In fact, we recently spoke to him. We did a town hall with him, and he was talking about how he wants to boost the electronics and manufacturing in the country. I want to understand from you, and you've also been a FICCI co-chair, how do you think we will actually become a manufacturing superpower? Because we have a long way to go.
I think the planetary position is such that it is poised to happen. The geopolitical environment is such that India needs to position itself as the biggest beneficiary of the situation which is getting created. So I feel it is not going to be easy for sure. Every stakeholder has to understand their own responsibility, and I don't hesitate in saying that government is really taking a lead, and I can't you know, share it enough that how sort of people are coming forward and possibly sort of taking more steps than they used to take in the past.
Yeah.
But fact of the matter is that communication is far more than what it used to be in the past. The decision-making process is faster than ever, I would say, and I'm sure you would have noticed a lot of policy interventions announced in the recent past. Honorable Prime Minister himself went ahead and announced air conditioners as one of the sunrise sectors in one of the CIS meeting which he attended recently. And industry has to make sure that they do their part in this whole process. And especially the multinational corporations have to really play a major role here, because access to technology is far more with them, and they need to make sure that they bring their technologies, their capabilities into India, utilizing the current environment, both of the kind of opportunity into demand which exists, and the actions which government is taking to ensure that a very clear path is laid. And I think phased manufacturing program is going to play a major role here, because if the policy environment is more transparent, and if one is aware that what is going to happen next few years time, then I think the investments can be planned in an efficient manner. So I think it is not going to be easy, because we are simultaneously also competing with some of the other manufacturing economies. Today, a Vietnam or a Indonesia is also equally in the race. And I think they had some early advantage because they sort of geared up just about few years before. And logistically, and from the point of view of supply chain efficiencies, especially looking at Asia as a whole, I think they are at an advantage. And today, China is looking at a situation of creating a hub and spoke model where they're wanting to utilize those Asian sort of manufacturing economies for that purpose. So in some sense, India has a lot of challenges. However, I think our domestic demand potential, and second, the supply chain efficiency which exists for us to look at exports towards the West, I think these are two major advantages with us. We need to really capitalize on this.
If you had to say two things that could be done for us to accelerate our manufacturing capability, because we are hearing about it, we're just hearing a lot about it. Of course, there is positive energy, there is proactive intent, communication, but what can we do on ground to ensure that we become really become manufacturing, not superpower, but definitely a force to reckon with?
So without taking names, I would, I'm sure you would understand the kind of reflections I'm trying to make. I think few of the things are already starting to happen.
Hmm.
So answering your question to things which we should do. First is we need to sort of execute some large ticket, you know, initiatives, if I have to say so. And if we look at some of the industries, so maybe IT industry is one example, and automotive industry would be another example. And we have some benchmarks or learnings which have happened in the past. So we need to execute something which is really big ticket to really shake the world and provide that confidence of the Make in India tag to have that credibility. So I think this is definitely needed. And here there can be variety of possibilities. One of the possibility can be a public-private partnership. So in the past, I think the major shakeup happened when Maruti sort of came into existence. So that's a great learning because this entire automotive revolution happened when Maruti happened. So I think we need that kind of approach into some large sectors in our country. Possibly energy storage can be one of these sectors. Uh, uh, Component manufacturing, so fab manufacturing can be another focus area for us. So we need to really identify. So industry and government need to come together, which is definitely happening, and identify some of the sectors where large ticket opportunities may exist and sort of take initiatives which are really game changing, because incremental initiatives or actions may not result into this kind of large capacity or capability creation. So
Yeah.
that is one which I feel needs to be done. And second is that we need to provide an environment for people to understand that how the policy interventions are going to take place in subsequent years, so that the environment is more transparent and people do understand that the investments can be phased in a manner they will be effective on their return. So these are the two things which I feel. One is very simple, which I am sure is definitely happening at this point of time. The other one, the first one, I feel that large corporates, large organizations, especially the multinational ones and the large Indian corporates and government of India, need to really come together and identify space where some large ticket investments can create large amount of credibility for people to believe in the tag of Make in India. So
Yeah.
that is what I feel that needs to be done.
Do you have any view on our capability? Because we know we keep on talking about 1.3 billion people, we keep on talking about our population, young population. How do you think can we create more employability? How do we create more efficiency, productivity in our workforce?
I think we are the smartest of people in the planet, and we have proven this into IT, into various other sectors also. So it's all about providing opportunity for people, and I personally believe that we possess a lot of skills, and upgradation of those skill sets
Hmm.
in line with the requirement is a matter of time. And I surely believe that the potential in the people at large and their willingness to learn things and to create difference for their lives, I think is immense in our country. So I do understand, where you are coming from. If you look at Japan, I think the manufacturing is happening for almost 100 years. The factories, the quality systems, the processes, and the demand itself, and then the necessity for ensuring that exports happen out of that country, etc., has happened in a long period of time in those kind of countries, whether it is Japan or it is China for last 30-35 years, or many other Asian markets. And the skill set started to get evolved in line with the necessities. And that process will happen in our country also. That is what I thoroughly believe. And I do understand that there's a requirement to provide that kind of confidence, especially for multinational corporations, to ensure that they bring in their investments into the country, knowing that the requisite skill sets exist.
Yeah.
But it is something like chicken and egg. And I thoroughly believe that. And I've seen in my own career. So when I started off with LG Hotline, so there were good 52 expatriates who came into the country and sort of trained all of us for the skill sets which were needed to run one of the most complex manufacturing processes. So it was a cathode ray tube manufacturing facility. They used to say that this is second most critical process after semiconductor manufacturing. And we ran the show quite efficiently. So once we got trained, and it's a matter of time, it took just about 3 to 4 months, couple of visits to Korea to get trained. And then it was all the entire show was run by Indian engineers. So I think skill is something which can be built or acquired. However, it is important to provide that opportunity to people. So that is my feeling on this.
How do you envisage and think about the road ahead in your journey, in the role that you are? How do you think about those things?
Yeah, so I think people like me have been lucky that we have sort of encountered some good experiences, especially during our professional life. So I've been lucky that I've worked under some really great leaders, and few of my learnings have been that leaders have to ensure that they provide an environment which is full of empowerment for people, wherein people can sort of explore and really exploit their capabilities. And leaders needs to ensure that they provide an environment where communication is very rich. And being in the position I am, to ensure that we drive localization of both products and people. So one of my intentions over next midterm is to ensure that we create future leaders within our organizations who would be ready to take up challenges and ensure that we position our organization, as I mentioned, at a position which it truly deserves. So I think the midterm agenda for me is in line with that. That is one. And second is on the personal front, I believe that one has to really start to share their learnings and experiences with as many people as possible. So therefore, last year I started to pen down my experiences, and I started a weekly sort of blog called Weekend Musings, which I post on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And this is all about my experiences during the week or otherwise. And as I mentioned that I've been deeply inspired by our founder, Konosuke Matsushita. And he is a legacy in his own. I mean, his life is such rich of experiences and, situations wherein tough challenges he encountered, how he overcome those challenges, how he created this large organization from scratch, and the kind of processes which are creating sustainable environment for the organization in the time to come. So my another agenda is that how do you really share your experiences with people, and in this whole process, if you are able to inspire few. So I think that is the kind of agenda which I'm taking forward for myself.
So Manish, we are talking for this show, Money Matters. I want to understand, what has money meant to you personally in your life?
Yeah, so I think money may mean differently to different people under different circumstances, and so would be my case also. Sometimes one may feel that money is a reflection of your hard work. Sometimes you may feel that money is a responsibility. If you need it, then you may feel that money is something which is a blessing. If you chase it, then it may mean very differently to you. So money may mean differently under different circumstances, to be very honest. But I think money is a responsibility, and if you really utilize that responsibility, or if you really lead that responsibility properly, so in simple sense, I think money should definitely flow, and money should definitely grow. So this is my perspective on money, but definitely money means a lot, without any doubt.